When I married Ethan, I believed I was marrying the love of my life. What I didn't realize was that I was also marrying into a quiet war I didn't even know existed. His mother, Linda, welcomed me with a smile the day we met. She hugged me tightly and told everyone how happy she was that her son had found someone who loved him. On the surface, she was polite, charming, and supportive. She even helped plan parts of the wedding. But something about her smile always felt slightly forced. On our wedding day, after the ceremony, she pulled me aside while everyone else was celebrating. She looked at me with a strange expression and said softly, "Take good care of him. He's all I have." At the time, I thought it was just the words of a loving mother. I didn't know it was the beginning of something far darker. Ethan and I moved into a small house about 30 minutes away from Linda's place. I thought the distance would give us space to build our own life. But Linda seemed determined to remain a constant presence. She started visiting almost every weekend. At first it seemed harmless. She brought homemade food, offered to help decorate the house, and constantly told Ethan how proud she was of him. But slowly, things began to change. She would make small comments when Ethan left the room. "Oh, you're still working that job? I thought you might want something more stable now that you're married." Or she would look around the house and say things like, "Ethan likes things very organized. I hope you're keeping up with that." The comments were subtle enough that I couldn't openly challenge them. But they chipped away at my confidence. Sometimes she would bring up Ethan's ex-girlfriend, Jessica. Jessica had been with Ethan for years before we met. "You know," Linda would say casually, "Jessica used to bake Ethan's favorite pie every Sunday." I would smile politely, pretending the comment didn't bother me. But inside, I wondered why she felt the need to remind me. The tension grew slowly, like cracks forming in glass. Then the real sabotage began. One evening Ethan came home from work looking unusually serious. "Mom called me today," he said. "Okay. She's worried about you." "About me?" "She said you've been very distant lately." I stared at him in disbelief. "I haven't even talked to her this week." He frowned, clearly confused. "She said you seemed upset the last time she visited." That conversation ended awkwardly, and I brushed it off as a misunderstanding. But it didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, Ethan started mentioning things Linda supposedly heard from me. "She said you think I work too much. She said you're unhappy living here. She said you told her you might want to move closer to your parents." None of those things were true. At first I thought maybe Linda was misinterpreting something. But the pattern became impossible to ignore. She was planting doubts in Ethan's mind. One night I confronted her gently while Ethan was outside grilling. "Linda, I think there may have been some misunderstandings between us." She tilted her head and smiled. "Oh? What do you mean?" "Ethan says you've heard things from me that I never said." For a brief moment, the sweetness disappeared from her face. Then it returned just as quickly. "Well, sometimes people say things without realizing how they sound." It was a clever answer. One that made it impossible to argue further. But I walked away from that conversation with a sinking feeling. She knew exactly what she was doing. The situation escalated a few months later when Ethan and I began discussing having a baby. We were excited but also nervous. When we told Linda, her reaction surprised me. She didn't smile. Instead, she went completely silent. "That's a big decision," she finally said. Yes, Ethan replied. But we're ready. Linda nodded slowly, but something in her eyes looked unsettled. After that day, the pressure intensified. Suddenly she began criticizing everything I did. If I cooked dinner, she would say it looked under-seasoned. If I cleaned the house, she would point out tiny imperfections. She even started telling Ethan that I seemed overwhelmed. I just worry she may not be ready for motherhood, she told him once. I overheard that conversation by accident. It felt like someone had punched me in the chest. But the worst moment came one afternoon when I arrived home earlier than usual. Linda was standing in our living room. She had a set of keys. My keys. I froze when I saw her. Oh, she said calmly. You're home early. How did you get in? She held up the keys casually. Ethan gave me a copy months ago. My stomach twisted. I had never known about that. What are you doing here? I asked. Just checking on the house. Something about the way she said it felt deeply wrong. That night I asked Ethan about the spare keys. I thought you knew, he said. She likes helping if we're away. Helping. The word echoed in my mind. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was happening. A few weeks later, my suspicions were confirmed. I was cleaning the bedroom when I found something hidden under the bed. It was a small envelope. Inside were printed screenshots of text messages between Ethan and Jessica. My heart started racing. The messages looked intimate, flirtatious. But something about them seemed strange. The dates were recent. Very recent. I confronted Ethan immediately. He looked completely confused. I haven't talked to Jessica in years, he said. I showed him the screenshots. He stared at them in shock. These are fake, he whispered. That's when the realization hit us both. There was only one person who had access to our house, and who desperately wanted our marriage to fail. Linda. But we didn't have proof. And without proof, accusing her could destroy Ethan's relationship with his mother forever. So we waited. And watched. Then one day the truth revealed itself. I came home unexpectedly again. Linda was in the kitchen, talking on the phone. She didn't see me standing in the hallway. I'm telling you, she said quietly. If they divorce, he'll move back here. I just need to make him see who she really is. My blood ran cold. I stepped into the kitchen. Who exactly am I supposed to be? I asked. She nearly dropped the phone. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then her expression hardened. You shouldn't be here, she said. It's my house. She laughed bitterly. No. It's his house. I took a deep breath. Did you fake those messages? She didn't answer. But her silence was enough. Years of manipulation suddenly made sense. You've been trying to destroy our marriage. She looked at me with pure hatred. You stole my son. No, I replied calmly. He chose his own life. That's when she said something that changed everything. You have no idea what I sacrificed for him. The words sounded almost desperate. What do you mean? I asked. She hesitated. Then she said something that shattered the image I had of her forever. Ethan isn't my only child. I stared at her. But you've always said. I had another son, she interrupted. Before Ethan. My mind raced. What happened to him? She looked away. He died. The room fell silent. For years, she continued, Ethan was the only thing that kept me alive. He needed me. He depended on me. Her voice trembled slightly. And now he doesn't. The realization hit me like a wave. She wasn't just jealous. She was terrified. Terrified of being alone again. You tried to break our marriage because you're afraid of losing him, I said softly. Her eyes filled with tears. But they weren't tears of regret. They were tears of anger. You don't understand what it's like to lose a child. Maybe not, I said. But that doesn't give you the right to destroy someone else's life. She didn't respond. That night Ethan confronted her. The conversation lasted hours. I waited in the car outside her house, my heart pounding the entire time. When he finally came out, his face looked pale. She admitted everything, he said quietly. And? He sat in silence for a long time. Then he said something that broke my heart. She said if I leave her completely, she'll have no reason to live. The same guilt. The same manipulation. But this time Ethan saw it clearly. We can't let her control our lives anymore, he said. So we set boundaries. Strict ones. Linda was no longer allowed to visit unannounced. She no longer had keys to our house. Contact became limited. At first she tried everything to pull him back. Tears. Apologies. Even anger. But eventually something changed. One afternoon, months later, she asked to meet us for lunch. When we arrived, she looked different. Older. Tired. I've started therapy, she said quietly. Ethan and I exchanged surprised looks. I spent years blaming everyone else for my pain, she continued. But the truth is, I never learned how to let my son grow up. The silence at the table felt heavy. I can't undo what I did, she said. But I want to try to be better. For the first time since I met her, she sounded sincere. It didn't fix everything. Trust takes time. Sometimes years. But something had finally changed. Not because her secret was exposed, but because the truth forced her to confront the reality she had been running from for decades. Today, Ethan and I are still married. Stronger than ever. And Linda? She's still part of our lives. But now there are boundaries. And sometimes, when I see the way she looks at Ethan, I understand something I didn't before. She wasn't just trying to ruin our marriage. She was trying to hold on to the only thing she believed she had left. And letting go was the hardest thing she ever had to learn.